Very soon, we'll be talking about the Aberfeldy Cemetery. It's one of those places that are remote, hard to get to, but there's a dedicated team who look after it. So I'm interested in taking a trip there, virtually. Now, most of us probably don't spend much time thinking about burial grounds, but over in West Gippsland there's a passionate group of volunteers dedicating their time to taking care of Victoria's highest cemetery. Danielle Kutchel visited to find out what they do.
High up on a hillside overlooking the Thomson Dam, at the very top in fact, is Victoria's highest operating cemetery, Aberfeldy. It's overseen by a passionate trust made of locals and those from further afield, and they're determined to make sure that Aberfeldy Cemetery remains on the map. 1,000 metres above sea level, Aberfeldy is what's known as an open cemetery, which means it's open for business and can take burials. There hasn't been one since 2010, but a cemetery is allowed to remain open provided it has a burial every 25 years. The most recent burial to be conducted was current Trust President Joel Smith's grandmother in 2010, who honeymooned in Aberfeldy in the 1940s.
I'm not sure how they came to honeymoon in Aberfeldy, but my grandfather was quite adventurous and had an old Land Rover and loved visiting the bush.
Yeah.
And so just must have fallen in love with it, I'd say.
It's believed there are around 80 interred in Aberfeldy, though not all graves can be seen and some are unmarked. Over the years, some have been lost to bushfires and the ravages of time. A survey was done recently to try and pinpoint where people were buried, which the Trust says will help them better understand this place they take care of, as former Trust President Ralph Chesterfield explains.
So we had the cemetery surveyed not all that long ago, and that gives us a bit more of an idea where things are. A lot of it's just as you go along, you might stumble on one sort of thing, and as you can see over there, it's all dead flat, but there's quite a few graves in there.
The first burial at Aberfeldy Cemetery was in 1865, but the cemetery was gazetted in 1877. That first grave isn't marked. Many others are, though. Local legends, pioneers, gold miners, and even a soldier from the First World War. Like many of the small towns around these ranges, Aberfeldy grew alongside the gold rush, supplying food and other needs to miners. There used to be a lot of traffic across the mountains through this thriving little town, with pubs, a post office, visitors and workers. But not so much anymore. Still, there's a strong community feel about this place. The Trust is eager to ensure the history of Aberfeldy is preserved through its cemetery, and members visit to maintain the lawns, gardens and graves. They get funding for work through grants. Some people know plumbing, others have electrical skills, and everyone chips in. But there's always more to do, Trust member Brian Taffs says.
Well, the remains of the rock wall, that's all pretty, it's heritage basically. We'd like to see a lot of that sort of repaired and put back up. And a lot of the graves that are here that have fallen into disrepair, there's some of the headstones that are almost falling over and that. So we want to be able to repair them and restore them so that they don't fall into total disrepair. So that all takes money and time. So that's some of the things that we've got planned for the future.
As well as burials, Aberfeldy Cemetery is home to an annual Anzac Day dawn service, held on the hill overlooking the mountains. In this tranquil spot, members of the Trust have built a seat of remembrance. The seat is handcrafted from local timber, including a slab of red gum that's almost 200 years old. Nearby is a memorial to Archie Donaldson, a fallen soldier buried at Aberfeldy. Brian is proud of the work they've done to create a place of reflection.
Yeah, we've got a cenotaph and we've got the lone pine, so it's quite unique for a cemetery and a cemetery trust to actually have that involved in something like that. I think it's quite unique and we're very proud of it.
There is still much that isn't known about Aberfeldy Cemetery's inhabitants. Many records were lost in the fires of 1939. Trust members are now looking to preserve as much of the history as they can, determined to ensure their stories and contributions to the region are not forgotten. Former Trust member Lynda explains.
I've worked with the birth, deaths and marriages to try and get a list from them, so I've got their lists as to who's buried here, and then I've also worked with families doing historical research, and they've given me death certificates, and on the death certificate it tells you where someone's buried, so I've picked up those names as well. We've got what I think is probably pretty close to everyone who has been buried in here. We just don't know the whereabouts.
Many of the graves of some of the earliest and most important Aberfeldy residents are marked with information boards, so visitors can learn more about the history of this region. Ralph says people visit almost every day in the warmer weather.
you'll get people turn up out of the blue. A young couple came in and they were wandering around here looking at the graves. She said, "Oh, I'm looking for my grandparents' grave." I said, "Oh yeah, what was their name?" And she told me. And I said, "Well, that's their grave there." They took a photo of it and said, "So now we'll go back and we can show them exactly where it is."
What's it like for you to be able to help connect people like that?
Great. Just to see the looks on their faces when you point out the actual grave and they go over it, and you can just see things going through their mind. And yeah, it's great. It's good. Gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling.
They say they could use a few more volunteers to help out with maintenance, but the trust itself is currently full. Anyone is welcome to apply to be buried at Aberfeldy through a funeral director. Around 15 people have already bought their space, Joel included.
I have my plot here ready, but it can wait. Sometimes I get a bit close to it, but yeah, it'll just have to wait till I'm ready or when he's ready for me to go. So, but it's just top of the world. So,
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it popular? Are people, like, do you get many inquiries?
They're dying to get in here.
That's an oldie.
Dead centre of town. You couldn't imagine a more fitting joke to end that one on. It's 2 minutes to 8 here on ABC Gippsland. You can find out more about Aberfeldy Cemetery, whether you want to volunteer or just visit, buy a plot, on their website, Aberfeldy. Just Google Aberfeldy Cemetery. That's going to be the easiest way to do that.